Okay, it's a new year. It's January 22nd, and this is the first episode. I'm going to try and keep these things a little bit shorter. In short, I'm just going to say that I've torn out most of the dead stuff from my garden. This will be the vegetable side. Up along the railing is where I'm going to, once these grow a little bit, I'm going to start training some beans. And I've replanted or reworked some of the flowers up along this part here. So that's pretty much it for right now in the morning, and hopefully sometime in the afternoon I'll get a chance to do some actual planting and come back and update this. Okay, so it's early afternoon and I'm back to work, but as it turned out I realized that the garden needed a little bit more trimming, just deadheading some of the flowers and such. And as you can see, Stinker still hangs around. One thing you all missed was a black cat that showed up, and I nicknamed Killer, but that was mainly because she knocked over one of my plants and killed it. So she was actually a very gentle cat, but she's now got a new home. So anyway, until the next part. Okay, my life is hectic. It's now the next day and I'm finally getting back to this. So here's part of the plan. I'm going to take my bottle greenhouse item here, which is another lima bean, which will match this lima bean. I'm going to take that, I'm going to put it in this pot here, and the way I end up doing that, what I've figured out with these bottle greenhouses, is I end up filling the bottle with water, and I let the material in the bottom, which is actually just wadded up toilet paper, but I take that material and I let it just kind of soak it up until it gets really loose. Then I can gently pull the bottom of the plant, the stem of the plant, out and transplant it. So that'll be the first step. Okay, now, so you don't want to leave this filled with water for too long. What I'm going to do is agitate it. It's been in there for a couple of minutes already. I agitate it like this and the media will break down to a point where I'll eventually be able to pull it up and out. So I'm going to keep doing that, and then I'll show you what it looks like once I get it out. Okay, so we're just about ready to pull this out, and I'm going to go ahead and pull it out, and then I'm going to give you another little tip. But if you watch, we get the roots to kind of clump together there. Pull it up and out, and I'm going to put it in there for a moment. And then if you happen to run into a problem where it clumps up too much, the clump gets too tight, one thing you can do is you can turn it over against a pitcher like this, and when you try and get this stuff out, you can actually just kind of hit the bottom of the bottle like you do with a ketchup bottle to try and actually get it to come out, and eventually the little plug will pop. If that doesn't work, drain the water out a little at a time until you get back down to just the medium and the plant, and then you can fill it up with water again and just kind of keep going over and over, and eventually you'll get enough of the media out that it should pop out pretty easily. Okay, on to the next thing. Okay folks, so life intervenes yet again, and it's probably about another hour or more later, but I did finally get the transplant done, and that would be in this pot down here. So now, if I swing back around, you'll be able to see I've got one at one end, and one at the, well, I guess you can't see it that well, but one at the other end. Okay, day 3, after a number of interruptions, and I'm going to try and finish this today, so we'll see what we can get done. Okay, I think I've managed to plant whatever I'm going to manage to plant. So, here we go. We got in the first couple of pots here, we've got, now this is part of how I do this, is I lay out the packages. I actually put letters on each one to give them a code. Actually, that last one, the corn, doesn't have a letter on it, but that's not a problem right now. But with the letters, I can then put a code on each, and I can note here that, like on this one, I've got A, B, and C in the same pot, and I planted it on 124. So these first 3 pots are all the same. They're planted identically, and they were planted on the same day. The plan is to take these, which are the asparagus beans, which are the yard longs, the regular pole beans, garden beans, and peas, and ultimately they're going to get planted along the railing here, where I can train them up. You can see this little mesh here. I'm going to train them up the mesh, and hopefully then I'll have a whole sort of range of stuff planted along here and climbing along and growing. So that's the idea with those. The other two on the back here are respectively F and E, which are both squash plants. I tried squash plants last year and they grew, they got to a point, and then they just didn't go anywhere. So I'm going to try them again this year, but I'm going to put one in each pot and just be real conservative that way. Also, both planted today. I'll water them in a little bit. These two up front here were planted 4 days ago. I think it was 4 days ago. I'm trying to go by recollection today. I planted them in the midst of a bunch of other stuff that was going on. So I don't know exactly which day, but that's pretty close. And they are both Bs, which are the garden beans. These were the easiest thing for me to grow. And so I'm just looking at just trying to get a good crop of them going this year so I can really pick and harvest from my own garden. This last one over here is a seed that a friend gave me. She said it was actually from a tree, so she thought it would grow a tree. I planted this a few months ago, and as bad as it looks, where all the leaves are kind of closed up, it's just, it continues to stay about where it is. I just keep watering it and it stays alive. So I'm hoping what it's doing is just putting out roots at the bottom and getting itself really established, and then it'll start to really sprout. But if it is a tree, I can't really expect it to grow very quickly. So beyond that, anything else I have here in terms of vegetables, if I work my way over here, this is the tomato from last year, and it's still got some flowers on it, so maybe it'll give me something. I'm really not expecting anything. If it just eventually dies out, I'll cut it down and put something else in the pot. Working my way over here, I've got the lima beans, which I had grown starting in the kitchen, and then I transplanted them out here. So I've got one here and one on the other end. Moving on from the vegetables, we got the flowers, which is actually everything you can actually see here is left over from last year. What I've done is I've planted some additional flowers in there by seed, and we'll see what happens with those. I planted them probably about on the 20th also, mainly right after I cleared out all of the dead stuff. So that's pretty much it for this very first update, and hopefully I'll have another update for you next weekend.